place where ghosts, cryptids, and extraterrestrials are sought. This is where you'll find answers to questions about what lurks in the dark. This is Periscope Uncensored.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the November 26, 2018 edition of Periscope Uncensored here on the LNM Radio Network. I'm your host, Clarissa Vazquez. Riding shotgun this evening, as always, is my faithful and ever-trusty co-host, Mr. Jax. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
You know, I got an amazing phone call this evening, so I am like on cloud 9.
To tell.
Well, you know, the offspring has been monkeying with the idea of joining the army, and then he decided he didn't want to join the army. He wanted to become an inner city police officer. You know, and given that he's my only offspring, I've been struggling with that a little bit. And tonight he called me and he said, "Mom, change of plans." And I went, "Okay." And he goes, "I'm not going to be a cop." And I'm like, "Oh, great. He's back to wanting to join the army, you know." And he says, "Nope." He says, "I want to be a teacher." And he's already started the enrollment process at the college to start getting that underway. He graduates high school in May, and he's going to go straight to college and work on getting his Colorado teaching credentials.
Yay!
Yeah, so mommy can sleep a little better now.
Yeah, but you're going to be wicked proud of him. I mean, you're proud of him anyway, so.
Yeah, I'd be proud of him no matter what he decided to do. But, you know, being a teacher is a little safer than being in the army or being an inner city police officer.
I agree with that.
And he wants to teach English or literature. And he has already spoken to several of his high school teachers who have given him all kinds of encouragement, you know, and they've told him, you know, it's not easy. You know, these are some of the things you can expect, and this is, you know, what it could cost, and this is what it could pay. And he said, "Mom, I don't want to be rich." He said, "But if I make enough, you know, to keep my head above water just a little bit," he goes, "I'll be happy." Like, more power to you, son.
Yeah.
So.
It's cut from the old cloth, huh?
Yeah, a little bit. A little bit. I used to teach back in the day, so he's kind of taking a page out of my book, I guess. But so how was your holiday, Jax?
Oh, it was wonderful. I ate myself into a turkey coma.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I had like 3 plates and crawled up on the couch and zonked out for about 3 hours.
Yes. The beautiful and amazing tryptophan coma.
Yep.
I didn't have that luxury. Partially because I didn't eat any turkey on Thanksgiving. I really was not feeling well during the day on Thanksgiving. And then I went on the air and did the Thanksgiving special here on the network Thanksgiving night. So I'm surprised it ended as well as it ended on my end.
Yeah. I was on that show, actually.
I know you were. That was a good show. We had a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It was great getting to hear you turn red.
You hear 50 Shades of Grey? I was 50 Shades of Red. More like 100 Shades of Red. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you were just a teeny bit embarrassed that night, but it was all fun. It's not like we were picking on you or anything, although I will forevermore refer to you as Pizza Boy.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Boy.
Going for that extra tip there, pizza boy. So, today is Cyber Monday, so I gotta do a shameless plug and let our listeners know that all 6 of my books are available on Amazon. You can find a direct link to my author page if you go to www.cccvbooks.weebly.com. You can find all 6 of the books there, and the direct Amazon links are there also. And that includes the book that I co-wrote with Chris, as well as the other 5 books that I have on the market. So Cyber Monday, support your favorite starving author. And, a lot of people, really take the time, now that Thanksgiving is over, everybody is really starting to focus on Christmas.
Yes.
So is ECCPI doing a Christmas gathering this year?
It's in the works, and I know that it's like Christmas is right around the corner, so we really got to get things going. We did bring it up to the team, but everyone was like, I don't know, maybe, so if we're going to do this, we got to do it like within the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. CCPI has a Christmas party every year. And, it's just a time, where we kick back, relax, we do a Secret Santa gift exchange, because there's so many of us.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, I give a little something to everybody, but, we also do a Secret Santa. And, we just kick back, we enjoy good food and good company. And, it's a gathering where we can all be together and no uniforms. I think that's what my people are liking the best is, no uniforms. And because, for meetings and trainings and such, they gotta wear the uniform. It's part of why we have the uniform. But, and before I forget, we got to send a shout out to our affiliates. So folks, if you are not listening via lnmradionetwork.com, you can listen via one of our affiliates. You can listen on terrestrial radio stations, High Point Radio 1620 AM, 100.5 FM, out of New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia, WCET 101.7 out of Columbia, South Carolina, KOY 1230 in Phoenix, Arizona. You can also catch us on KYAH 540 AM, Utah's Talk Authority. And there are the streaming apps, Dailymotion, TalkStream Live, TuneIn, Twitch, iTunes, and you can catch the Periscope Uncensored archives on YouTube. Just go to youtube.com and look up Periscope Radio. So Jax does a great job of uploading our archives every week to our YouTube page. And be sure to like and subscribe. Also, folks, 'tis the season for giving. So we encourage you to go to lnmradionetwork.com and find the donate button. Help keep shows like Periscope Uncensored on the air. And, if you do decide to support the network, be sure to tell them Periscope sent you. That way we can at least get an attaboy from Katie and Daryl. So we've got a great guest tonight, Jax.
Yes, I cannot wait.
Yeah, I know we've both been looking forward to talking to this guy. It's not often that we have cryptozoological people on the show. Usually it's ghosts and stuff like that. But we were really, really lucky to land an interview with Daniel Benoit from the East Coast Bigfoot Research East Coast Bigfoot Research Organization or some East Coast Bigfoot Research something.
Yes.
ECBRO.
Research Organization, yes. East Coast Bigfoot Research Organization.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And he's going to be joining us after our bottom of the hour break. We're going to be talking about Bigfoot. And I got some serious questions I want to ask him. And I know you do too, Jax.
Yes.
There's been a lot of discussion in the paranormal community as a whole as to, what these cryptozoological creatures are. Are they interdimensional beings? Are they extraterrestrials? Are they just, mammals that we haven't managed to put in captivity yet. What are these things? And so, maybe Daniel can shed some light on that for us tonight.
Hoping because it's during an investigation with a team that we do not speak of.
Yes.
About 3.5 years ago, and we're investigating and we're outside, and lo and behold, we're hearing wood knocks.
Really? And this was during a ghost investigation?
Correct.
Wow.
So I picked up a piece of wood and I started banging against the tree, trying to get a response back.
Okay.
That was my first instinct. Didn't happen, but I tried.
Okay. Well, and I know on TV, they do these like primal screams and stuff like that. And I've also seen a lot of controversy on social media, from people going, the guys on TV have it wrong. When do the guys on TV ever have it right? Regardless if it's Bigfoot, ghosts, UFOs, whatever. But, the guys on TV have it wrong. You don't do the primal scream. And so that's something else I want to, ask Daniel about. Be like, what's up with screaming, man? Is that really a thing? Or,
There's, sorry. There is a thing on YouTube. It doesn't have to do with a scream, but it has to do with a 911 call. And I don't know if you heard this.
I have not. Tell me.
There's a gentleman, he's an older gentleman, and he had called the cops, 911, to tell them that there's somebody walking in his yard. And he said it was big, and it was like, because it was dark out, so obviously the figure is going to be
right,
black, super dark. So I guess his dog was killed 2 weeks earlier by whatever this was, threw it like 20 feet over a fence. So whatever was there, he's like, oh, you know what? You better get somebody out here right now. Now he's looking at me. And this is a legit call. You can look this up on YouTube.
Wow.
Bigfoot 911 call.
I will look that up. So are you thinking that encounters with Sasquatch are becoming more common? Or what are we thinking here?
You know what? I think, of course, this is just my personal opinion. Other people may have other opinions, but I mean, a lot of people are saying, you're not going to be able to prove anything until you shoot one and you bring it in.
Right.
I don't agree with that at all. And I think that even out in California, I think there's a law out there. If you shoot one and you get charged for murder, because they think it's so close to being, our closest relative, so to speak, that you could be brought up charges on murder.
If you shoot a Bigfoot.
Correct.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think I am.
Wow, that is insane.
I mean, the thing is that you got. I mean, I'm sure that David Benoit can probably attest to this as well. It's like, well, how come you don't see a body? Well, you're not going to see a body because you got other scavengers out there that are going to eat away at the flesh and carry the bones away.
True.
So how are you going to have a body if, that doesn't even, I don't know, that doesn't even make sense to me.
Yeah, I don't know. Here in Colorado, we have reports of Sasquatch sightings. And, we, unfortunately, out here in Colorado, it's a big problem. It's the problem is actually shrinking a little bit because the state has started installing elk fence on both sides of the interstate to keep the animals, from crossing the interstate. But there is a big problem with these animals being hit and killed by cars. Everything from deer and elk to bears and cougars and foxes, even the most elusive of creatures, like the cougar, the mountain lion. We occasionally have a vehicle versus mountain lion out here in Colorado. And so that would, in essence, prove its existence, aside from the fact, that we've captured them, have them in captivity, we've studied them, et cetera, et cetera. So, why don't we have, we have pedestrian versus vehicle accidents all the time. So why no Bigfoot versus vehicle accidents? Especially at the rapid rate that humans are encroaching on the wildlands. And, going back to California, there's these massive, massive fires that are driving they're driving the wildlife, into the populated areas because they literally have nowhere else to go. So, where is the California Sasquatch going? These are the questions that I have. I'm not saying that I don't believe. I just have more questions than I have answers at this point. And I think it's going to be exciting to have Daniel on the show and, hopefully get some of those answers. And, he's been doing this for a while and he's really, really well respected in the Bigfoot community. I've been following his feed on social media for a while. And he seems to know his stuff. He goes out regularly in search and, posts photos and such online. And so I'm hoping that he has some answers. And if he doesn't know, I hope he's the kind of person that has the integrity to go, I don't know, or explain things to me, as to why we don't have these answers yet, stuff like that. I don't know. We're going to find out, though. We're going to find out because we are not afraid to ask the hard questions.
I really can't wait. I really can't. CCPI, are you just geared towards ghosts or you do everything? Because ECCPI is actually geared toward it.
Right. At this point in time, CCPI's primary focus is ghosts. In the past, we've looked at, branching out and exploring, extraterrestrials and cryptozoology and things like that. But we just haven't been able to get the knowledge and the manpower together to branch out. That's not to say that we won't in the future. But, right now we just focus on the ghosties. So, but you guys look at all of it, right?
Yes. All aspects of the paranormal. See, we have a long-term goal that we want to branch out the whole entire East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
From the tip of Maine all the way down to, Florida, Miami.
Wow.
So, and then as you know, we have our West Coast ambassador, so we want to start shifting more out that way too. Mm-hmm. So we'll see what happens. It's a work in progress, so.
It is. It's a work in progress. It's not an overnight thing. And it's a lot of hard work, isn't it?
Yes. It's a lot harder than I thought it was going to be, I tell you that.
I warned you.
But you know what? I wouldn't change it for the world. I really wouldn't.
That's good to hear.
And and I've said this to my team and everything, and I think my co-founder David might be listening. Hey David, there's not a team on the face of this planet that I wouldn't put my team against. All honesty. I believe in my team that much.
That's
because
awesome.
some of them I've already worked with before from the team that we don't speak.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of know each other, and we all play off each other, and we know what each other's thinking, and and it's just been an awesome ride. A little over a year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, September was a year. But
Yeah, that's awesome.
There's investigators on the team though, like myself, like Chris,
Mm-hmm.
who's also co-host of Hidden World
Mm-hmm. On Sunday nights.
on Sunday nights. Been investigating for years, just like you said on a previous show.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, you've got a lot of experience on the team, and I think you guys are starting to get to a place, where you're starting to mesh as a team.
Yes.
And when you're first starting out, that's always the hardest. And just like any other, business or organization, people are going to come and go, and business is going to ebb and flow. You're going to have times, where you're busier than a one-legged man in a butt kicking contest. And there's going to be other times, where you are like dead. You can't find a case to save your life. But that's when, holding training sessions and field trips and stuff, that's where that comes in handy.
Yes. But
you guys are getting there.
I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit.
I am so sorry. I said you guys are getting there.
Yes, we are.
So
it's always a work in progress. I mean, being a paranormal investigator, as you know, there's more and more equipment coming out. Like, it seems like almost every day. And then there's reputable companies that you can get equipment from, and then there's other companies that aren't so reputable, and then you gotta, should I jump the gun on this? And it's like, then you read the reviews, and it's like, no, I'm not going with that one.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's always a learning curve. So there's always a learning process with everything that we do. If we get a new piece of equipment, you always got to try to keep up with it, or else you're going to be left behind.
Right. Yeah, and the same goes with theories, and hypotheses, in the field. We're going to be talking next week to Ben Robison, and he's going to be talking about the CERM theory. And I'll send you the link on that so you can read up on it prior. But it's a new theory that's sweeping the field right now, and not many people know about it, but it's gaining steam, and I really think that it's got some merit. So we're going to be talking about that on the show next week. But you talked about scoping out other teams and stuff like that. I read online today that there is a team in Tucson, Arizona, that is advertising exorcisms with a 100% money back guarantee for $5,000.
What?
Yeah. I don't know the name of the team, or else I'd call them out on the air and say, you guys are awful, and you're taking advantage of people. It's ridiculous. And they are offering a 100% guarantee, money back guarantee. So that's good, I suppose. But to charge someone money for paranormal services is wrong in the first place. And to charge such an exorbitant amount it's asinine. I'm going to say it on the air. It's asinine. And it's uncalled for, and it shouldn't be happening. So Tucson, Arizona, people, make sure if you're in the Tucson area and you're looking for a paranormal research organization, make sure you find one that not only is credible and has references available, but also does not charge for their services, because it is a scam. So
Wow.
that
and that's that. Go ahead.
it blew my mind today when I read about it.
You know, that makes me so angry, because that just like makes the field take like 20 steps back.
Yep.
You know, we work so hard, you know, the true paranormal investigators and the legit teams, they work so hard in this field, and you think you're starting to get a little bit ahead, and then something like this comes out, and then you take like 30 steps back. And that's that. I don't know. That's just not right.
It's infuriating, isn't it? It's awful.
My mind is blown.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, I don't know the name of the people or the organization, or else I would call them out on the air. You know me, I'm not one for slandering, but I would, if I had any kind of identity on this, on this event, I would obviously research it, make sure it's, factual before I call them out on the air. But I would totally slam them on the air. I would, because it's not right. And that's right up there with kicking puppies in my book. You just don't do that.
Right. Yeah.
So
I don't know. I just try to Google it, see if I could find something. I couldn't find anything either right now. I can't find anything right now.
I found it on social media earlier. And so I think later I may Google, exorcists in Tucson, Arizona, or, Tucson paranormal research, organizations, and see who's offering, exorcisms. So, and I
think I got it.
Did you find it? Well, it's not that important, Jack.
No, talking about a movie anyway.
Okay. It's not that important, and I just got a message from our guest, and he's ready to go.
Cool.
Yeah, he's excited about being on the show with us, which is great, because I'm excited to talk to him. So we'll be giving him a call here in just a couple of minutes. But, I'm still stuck on the whole team in Tucson that's charging $5,000 for an exorcism. That just makes me mad. Makes me so angry, I just want to use a Brillo pad instead of toilet paper. That's how angry it makes me, Jax. So.
Big way to put that. Yeah. It I don't know. Like I said on I think it was our second show or something, that there's a team out there right now. They first investigation is free. They have to come back to do a revisit, and then they charge. Yeah,
that's not right either. Any team that charges money for their services is no bueno in my book. That's just wrong. Just wrong. But the time has come, my friend. It is time for our bottom of the hour break. But when we come back, we're going to have Daniel Benoit on the show. We're going to be talking about Bigfoot. So stay tuned, folks. You are listening to Periscope Uncensored on the L&M Radio Network, and we will be right back. Welcome back to Periscope Uncensored here on the LNM Radio Network. I'm your host, Clarissa Vazquez. Riding shotgun this evening is the man, the myth, the legend, Jax.
How you doing, everybody?
And folks, we've got a fantastic guest on the line. As we talked about earlier in the show, he's part of the ECBRO, and we're going to be talking about some Sasquatch. But more importantly, we're really happy that he agreed to have tonight's interview because he's been under the weather today. So we're really happy that he's still hanging. He's hanging tough, and he's on the show with us tonight. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join us in welcoming Mr. Daniel Benoit to the show.
Hello.
Good evening. Are you feeling better?
I'm just very congested right now, so and hopefully I won't cough too much on the show tonight.
It happens.
Yeah, this is last time. I don't know if you guys remember. Last time I was scheduled to be on the show, I actually got you guys mixed up with another show, and I scheduled you at I'm thinking I was dealing with two different people from the same show, and I scheduled you and another show on the same day, same time. And I was like, what? So I'm glad that we got that out of the way, and here we are. And so
it's all right. That's why we have reschedules.
And I do ask if you guys just bear with me at any time. I mean, this is not normally, my voice may sound a little deeper than normal, so I guess it's part of the nasal congestion and everything. So
got a little Barry White thing going on.
Yeah.
So for our listeners who are not familiar with you, if you wouldn't mind, tell us a little bit about yourself and about the ECBRO.
Well, where to begin? Well, I've been doing this for, not as long as some people have. However, I've been in this several years. Wasn't always into Bigfoot all my life. I've always been just your average, outdoor kind of guy. Growing up, a young kid playing in the woods and tagging along with dad, going hunting. As a kid, I always used to play in our backyard in the woods, and we used to have these boulders and rocks, and used to play around, and some of the rocks formed like little miniature caves, and those were our forts, and and getting familiar with the outdoors and the wildlife in general. Growing up fishing and again hunting, and just exploring nature, and that's basically most of my life was. And of course, a few obstacles along the way as coming into adulthood and getting married and divorced and having children and typical adventures of the adult life. And Bigfoot, when Bigfoot comes into play, for one thing, I didn't realize how big Bigfoot was as far as popularity wise, and till it all started for most, a lot of people that are familiar with the Patterson footage, where when I've seen that a few times, and the thing is, it wasn't until I watched the documentary where they try to, disprove it, and everything they did, everything was pointing towards this being a real creature. And the way Bill Munn's a graphic analyst who put a lot of time and work into this, and science in general put a lot of work into this, trying to prove it, discredit it, try to debunk it, whatever you name it. And I was just impressed by what they couldn't find out. More or less everything that they were pointing at was, man, this is incredible stuff, and it just it's like turning on a light switch. A light bulb went up in my head, and it's just, I don't know, this excitement kind of started to grow inside me, and let's just say every time I started to go out in the woods, I was paying more attention. I was like, because Bigfoot, is something that was more or less always in the back of your, mind that you didn't really think about, unless that's something that you grew up with, But But so yeah, after seeing the Patterson footage, that and with what they were doing, it really did. It opened up a new world to me. To start really paying attention and be be that as it is. I mean, being out in the woods as much as I was, let's just say it had me on full force. And I was out there exploring and really taking my time. And then, believe it or not, I was actually starting to discover things that, and trying to debunk everything I found. I was finding things that, I had me questioning myself. I was like, structures and things that could be man-made. Is man making all this? Is this all weather? Or could this be the work of something else? And then you start finding these foot tracks. Okay, do we have people walking around barefoot deep in the woods? Some of these are looking pretty big, so I was convinced that I was starting to find, the real deal as far as tracks go. Yeah,
Okay.
Structures and all these formations that look like they form shelters or whatever they may be.
Mhm.
Of course, we got to be careful when we approach them and look at them because there's a lot that we can debunk when it comes to that.
Right.
Yeah, just you know, it's just I was very alert, in finding things that were apparently that was always there. It's just I just never paid attention to it. Just like you meet somebody, some of us have been doing this for a long time, and you get into a conversation with another hunter or somebody that hikes all the time, and you start talking about what you do and sharing information, and then respectfully they share their objective side, their disbelief side. Well,
Right.
I'm a hunter. I'm a hiker. I'm out there all the time. I don't see this. I don't find those. And I said, well, exactly. You're not out there looking. You're focused on one thing. You're not looking for what I'm out there for. So that's the thing where people don't realize if they're not finding things, you got to look for them to find them, right?
Right.
So, um, so that's kind of how this works, and where I come from. I tell people, you want to find things, it's not going to happen right away, and you just got to take your time and become alert to what's out there, and there's a lot more out there than people realize. It's something you got to really, it take your time to do. You got to have patience. It's like I get people telling me all the time, I want to see a Bigfoot. I want to see a Bigfoot. There's people that have been involved with this field for, I've talked to people that have been doing this 50, 60 years. Some may have maybe only seen one, you know. I've talked to some that have been involved that long and still haven't seen one, you know. Um, then again, you got some that claim to see them in the, every time they go in the woods. um,
Right.
that's a whole, I guess that's a different story there. I'm not going to get into that right
I get it. I get it. We have
Yeah.
that problem in the ghost field too.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So yeah, I guess it works all the way around, and no matter what field you're in, 'cause there's always an exaggerator or the one that wants that attention. But
Hmm.
so man, I don't know. It's you know, Bigfoot. I'll be straight out before we go any further. I will say that for those listening, you know that you know I don't know if we got skeptics and non-believers out there listening, but I will tell you, from my point of view and my findings, I will stake my reputation and say bluntly that Bigfoot is real, and there's evidence out there. And as for talking about evidence again, as far as the foot tracks, you know, science is actually slowly waking up to accept tracks as considered as physical evidence. But
Hmm.
it's come a long ways. It's science is very objective, and that's the way they're doing the job. But as far as a lot of the evidence that we find, regardless if it's a hair sample or whatever kind of specimen, whatever kind of sample it is, there's procedures and protocol that that we're learning that we need to start taking in order for science to start considering willing to accept, that as any possible evidence. So, um, and just for the record, you guys got to forgive me. I get to rambling about things, and so especially having this cold and feeling the way I do, I may not make sense sometimes. So yeah, if I do, you guys got to stop me.
No, you're perfectly all right. But I do have a question for you.
Yes.
Given that you've been doing this for a while and how knowledgeable you are as far as these creatures go, Jax and I were discussing this earlier in the show, and one of the questions I have, in your opinion, is Sasquatch is it an extraterrestrial being? Is it an interdimensional being? Is it just an earthbound mammal? What is Sasquatch? Do you know?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you on this here. I can't say that I know, because one thing I will clearly state, there is people that will claim that they know. However, they're self-proclaiming themselves, they're making themselves out to an expert, where that's the case. There's no experts in this.
Right.
Now, we could all have our opinion, and that's the thing. There's nothing wrong with everybody having a different opinion. But my situation is, before I explain what I feel and what I believe if you're going to have an opinion on what you might think it is or what you believe it is, I believe that we need to have something or multiple of somethings, to support that belief.
Right. You got to back it up.
Right. Now, with the way I believe, with what I have to support it, may not be enough. And I totally understand it. But the more and more I've looked into it over the years and compared more notes with observation and the experiences, findings, my side, my viewpoint on things here, I do a lot of comparison, and I tell people this all the time. When it comes to Sasquatch, Bigfoot, whatever, I look at the closest that we can resemble him to a known subject. Because there's people that believe that it's human. I don't really quite go that way. Of course, then again, as science, humans were considered primates. All right, so now I look at our non-human primates: chimpanzees, gorillas, bonobos, so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Start observing all their behaviors, their diets, whatever, everything that they're known for doing, making, creating, their attitudes, their communication skills, everything. A lot of what they do, that if we observe them enough and pick up on all these little things here, and then look back over here, and wait a minute, we hear those kind of sounds, we find those kind of structures, we see a lot of these twisted tree breaks, and so forth. There's a lot of different things, tree knocks, and all kinds of weird, different, whatever you name it, that a non-primate does. A lot of it's been observed right here in the United States. So, with that being said, I'm just using that as a simple example.
Right.
More and more I look at back and forth, to me it makes more sense that Bigfoot is some type of primate. Now, I'm not making him equal to our known non-human primates. I believe that he is a primate of its own kind, or a species of its own kind, just unclassified. And that's just my opinion, based off of what I'm comparing him to. I never hear, I hardly ever compare him or hear other people compare him to something, besides, well, I had a sighting of a Bigfoot sighting, but I happened to see a UFO, and that coincidence, whatever. You didn't see him coming out of a UFO. In my opinion, it's not good enough.
Right.
Unless you can witness that. That's your word against anybody else's. But I like to use a little bit more science, or logical science and some things. And I'm not no expert. I don't want people to think I'm a know-it-all either. But that's just the way I look at things. And when people present other things, their viewpoints, I'm not going to dismiss them. I like to believe that I have an open mind, and consider other possibilities. But when people do, I have to ask that question. Okay, well, if you're viewing it from this type of angle, can you please explain why? I need to know, so I can consider it myself, So, um, so yeah, as far as all the extraterrestrial, all the, the alien or interdimensional, um, I'm being honest. I don't believe in it when it comes to Bigfoot because it hasn't been proven. Just like my belief, people may not believe in that because maybe they haven't observed Sasquatch the way me and so many others have. Maybe they observe it in a totally different manner, but if you look at, if you gather, information from all these reports, even descriptions, even, the descriptions, the features, yeah, you're going to hear a human come out a lot, but then you're going to hear a gorilla feature. You're going to hear the long arms, the long hair. You're going to hear features, descriptions describing orangutan and a gorilla, and then you're going to be, again, back to the human. You're going to say, well, he had a human looking face, just because he had a human looking face doesn't mean he's a human. Just like people can look at a chimpanzee. Oh, they always look human, but they're not human. Their DNA is very close to human, but they're not human. So, so that's how I look at things.
Right.
With my opinion, I guess I'm straightforward about things, and I try to keep things simple as possible. So, because in today's Bigfoot community, over the years, I picked up a lot of things where people have different opinions. They even throw religion in there, based off of this, and they want to mix this up. Bigfoot's this from out of the Bible, and of course you got people that live off the evolutionary theory, and so that's where lately I started looking into a lot of things, and without getting too crazy, I use some of my research and I put it in a book, and it's called Learning Bigfoot, and it speaks a lot about religion, the terms used in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
What people refer to the Nephilim, and I actually use scriptures and everything. And so from religion, the science, the evolutionary, and the contradictions of evolution and primates, non-human primates, all that's thrown into one mess into one of my latest books I just put out. It's not a big book either, but for being a small book, it has a lot of information in it. And basically, I kind of throw everything together, and so. But regardless of how people view it and read it, they're still going to believe what they want to believe. But I use the layout of my research in that book so people can understand where I'm coming from, the better explaining. Because I'm not always the best at explaining things. So.
No, and that makes perfect sense. As an afterlife researcher and an author of 6 books myself, I totally get that. Sometimes we can explain things better in print than we can verbally or vocally.
Absolutely.
And so, that's, knowledge is power. And, so if we can share the knowledge to people that are willing to learn and try to understand, then, more power to them.
Absolutely. I even got a book for the kids too, but it's more of a coloring book. Yeah, I just decided to do that. That came out with that about a year ago. Yeah, maybe a little bit over a year ago. So, but yeah, I had fun doing that one. So I had permission to share certain particular photos in that one. Like the cover of the artwork on that's from a real good friend from Ohio, and so. But yeah, even in this newest book I just put out, Learning Bigfoot. It's called Learning Bigfoot: Discovering the Hidden Truth. And some of the photos used in that one there were, with permissions from other fellow researchers and friends and so forth. And a lot of them are like, there's a section in there with pictures, descriptions, eyewitness sketch drawings, so, and which is interesting if you look at that, you'll see that I use them because they all have a similar appearance and with what everybody shares, and which I find very fascinating. So, And especially on the inside of the book, when you first open up the first page, there is a photo uh, it's a sketch drawing by an artist by the Nate Hamilton, who actually gathered reports and data and all these different reports from different eyewitnesses, and he combined it all into basically constructed what he drew. And his artwork is so realistic. It looks real, and it's amazing with what he did. And so yeah, his artwork based off of several eyewitness descriptions, and then inside the book where like I said, some local fellow eyewitnesses and everything I shared there with sketch drawings, and you'll see how they're similar. So 'cause that's another big thing I do too, and kind of maybe jumping subject here, is I gather a lot of reports, and I like to investigate them. I'm sure just like, ghost story, you guys like, you might get a call, say there's something strange going on here. And then, you schedule it, you go check it out. It's the same thing, basically the same thing we do. And, I've done that in various locations here in Virginia, and particularly where I live right here. I don't know how familiar you are with the state of Virginia, but we have the Shenandoah Valley, and it is beautiful out here. We got Skyline Drive, which is all part of the Blue Ridge Mountains. You got the Allegheny Mountains and so forth, and then we got Appalachian Trail, of course, runs right through here. And so it's a beautiful location, full of forest, and so much terrain. Excuse me. And I've gathered a number of reports from mostly not all residential, because some of the residentials that I've gathered reports from, actually these are people that live in the mountains and claim to have experienced things at one time or another. Some say that it's been that's happened longer than that. Some claim to have ongoing activity, and then on the other hand, these are other people that had road sightings, and so forth. So, gathering these reports, here in the Shenandoah Valley alone has actually been. I almost hate to go anywhere else because there's so much that I've been kind of clustering here on, reports. You want to stay focused. You want to be able to keep your attention, like keep checking out these areas, because like I have a special area of study or focus, and that is in the George Washington National Forest, which for those listening not familiar with the George Washington National Forest, here in Virginia, George Washington National Forest has over 130,000 acres of land. And that's not including the other forest terrain that runs into other states. It's all remote. And I'll tell you what, I have one particular area, and I have it broken down into zones. And in those zones, there's one I love to pay attention to because we've gathered a lot of activity out of there between the vocalizations and tree knocks, and we had an encounter out of there. And basically, there's been actually a couple out of there, but I've heard stories from other areas. I've found things in other areas, and I've experienced things in other areas. But this one particular area is my main study, and so it's like going in there every so often to see if there's changes with the terrain, looking for possible new tracks, and because I camp right outside or right across from this particular area, and last time I camped out there, I didn't really get nothing out there, but majority of the time there's always something around there that happens. And so yeah, like I said, I like to focus on reports in certain locations that have actually produced ongoing activity. Now, in the state of West Virginia, that's another location where I've been actually starting to focus on because we're planning a spring camping expedition, and because I've been gathering reports from out of West Virginia. And West Virginia is, long before I personally started gathering information or people telling me stories or reports of what they've seen. I've always heard, just watching TV, or documentaries or finding Bigfoot, whatever it may have been. There's always been Bigfoot, something Bigfoot out of there, because you got the Mothman, you got all these other reports out of West Virginia. But within this past year, up to a year and a half, I've been gathering reports. There's more and more people are starting to come out for some reason, sharing their stories. Or you might run into somebody or meet somebody say, well, hey, you live in the Shenandoah Valley. You're not too far from West Virginia, and it's like my cousin or so-so, my brother, back just a year ago, or this person said they see this, right outside their front yard and going into the woods over the minefield or whatever. All these different stories. It's like, wait a minute, slow down. So, I jot down, I take notes of all this stuff. I need to know counties and whatever. And so I've been making notes of all this, and it's developing a pattern, a cluster. So I'm working on narrowing it down to where I may want to try to step foot there and spend some time in there. Because apparently there's within a so many mile radius there's something going on within there. There's something inhabiting that location. And I want to spend enough time there in hopes to maybe find something, something legit, something worth going there for. And because that's the chance you take anytime you go to investigate or spend time in the area. You just may get totally stumped and you're like, oh crap, we didn't get nothing. We didn't hear no crazy sounds, didn't find no footprints. And that's the chance you take. But you know what? Thing is, if you're going out there, like me, I love being out in the woods, period. I don't care if I find anything or not. Like this past weekend, me and my daughter, we went out deer hunting, sat there behind our ground blind, and, didn't see no deer, but I loved every minute about being out there, just listening and watching everything, and the sound of the river nearby flowing.
I saw the pictures from that expedition. Your daughter was dressed a little bright for deer hunting, but
yeah, that first day she was, yeah. I wasn't going to argue with her because, she didn't, I don't know, she didn't listen to me. She had the proper stuff to cover up.
Yeah, so, pink is not exactly a deer hunting color. But on that note, we have to take our top of the hour break. But when we come back, we're going to have more with Daniel Benoit. So stay tuned, folks. You're listening to Periscope Uncensored on the LNM Radio Network. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Periscope Uncensored here on the LNM Radio Network. I'm your host, Clarissa Vazquez. Riding shotgun this evening, as always, is my faithful co-host, the man simply known as Jax.
How you doing, everybody?
And we've got a great guest on the line. And Jax, I know you've got questions. I've got questions. Daniel has been a great guest for the first segment of the show. And I really want to get rolling again, with some more of these questions. And so, Daniel, one of the things that Jax and I touched on earlier in the show is that the lack of interaction that we as humans are having with Sasquatch, with Bigfoot. Humans are encroaching on wildlands at an exorbitant rate. We've got the massive wildfires in California that are driving the wildlife into the populated areas just at a ridiculous pace because they have nowhere else to go. So why is it, do you think, that we're not having more human Sasquatch interaction?
That's a very good question. Well, first of all, I believe it's safe to say, Sasquatch is a very intelligent. Actually, let me rephrase it: highly intelligent. Now, as far as the wildfires and everything, there's so much wildlife being caught up in that, and I like to say that Sasquatch is maybe one of the wisest or the smartest. We hope that maybe he escaped that. We don't know. Of course, if government finds information, as far as we know, they may not show that bit that much.
Right.
But I've seen pictures of rattlesnakes caught in the fire, and other miscellaneous wildlife, and some domestics that got caught in that fire.
Mhm.
Um, you know, it's just I like to believe, and I've never been to the West Coast. And I do a lot of comparison with West versus compared to the East with forest and terrain, and which I'll kind of with this question I'll probably get into that a little bit, but um, so as far as escape routes and there's possibilities that more and more people maybe have an interaction or just sightseeing or having sightings. And the thing is, over the years, we hear stories and sightings when we watch these shows, Finding Bigfoot, when they have their town hall meetings. I believe it's safe to say that only so many of them have claimed to see something. A lot of those extras in there that are they're just filling in seats, and so we hear sighting reports from based off of what we see on TV or on a documentary. Well, there's so many people, and I'm learning this more and more. Every year, more and more information is coming out. Where, for example, with who I am and the team that I have that we're growing, when more and more people learn about us, and I'm just using us as an example, the ECBRO. There's several other groups out there that are expanding by hosting public events and allowing the public to come in. Skeptics and non-believers get curious enough to come check stuff out, and then there's people out there that have seen something, have experienced something, and for numbers of years or maybe not so long, I don't know, there's people that when they find somebody and they get comfortable with you and feel they have that the urge to share that experience with you,
Right.
Because that's part of what I'm doing. I want people to know who we are and that they can come to us, and so I believe there's more people than we realize that have experienced things, and the reason, and I think a lot of us know this, a lot of reason why people remain silent is ridicule, mockery, and the craziness that we hear, for people thinking that we're crazy for doing what we do or claiming what we may claim. I got people in my own family. Not so much my parents. My parents are great, big supporters of what I do. I got my younger brother and I got two older sisters. Now, the oldest out of the two, my sister Melissa, God bless her, she loves putting me down on this, and I even my father speaks up on my behalf. My father questions her. Why do you not so believe? Because my sister, she ain't the outdoors. Well, she does. She goes camping, but at a campground in an RV.
That's cheating.
I know. I believe in primitive camping. Now, that's the only camping. Don't get me wrong. I've been in campgrounds too, but just for entertainment for my daughter when she was younger. But so primitive camping. That's where I believe in experiencing wildlife and experiencing the real nature. You go in some of these local campgrounds. Yeah, you might get lucky. You might see a bear pass through the campground. Big deal. I mean, I see bears all the time, and but you don't want to go in a more remote, secluded area. So I mean, yeah, like I said, I get a lot of crap from my sister, and I don't let it bother me. I ignore it. And sometimes, if I'm in the mood, I'll get into a discussion with her. I'll ask her questions. Sometimes some of the questions I have to ask her, she won't even come back and answer me. I'll say, well, there you go. You don't have nothing to come back on. Depends on what I ask her. But I don't like arguing with people if they don't believe. But when you have a non-believer and you have people that don't believe, well, I ask them this: Could you prove that they don't exist? Just I'm sure the same thing goes with ghosts. People are seeing things.
Right.
You can't call them liars. I mean, the sightings and reports, they go back hundreds of years. I mean, there's stories and reports pre-Columbus era. I believe there's a story, and I don't know how solid it is because there's some mixture and some confusion involved with uh, see, make sure I say his name right. Leif Erikson was I actually did a blog on him. It's been a while, so I can't remember much of the detail. But he was a barbarian kind of explorer. They and there's, like I said, there's a story there. I don't know how solid it is. Claim to have seen things. So Native Americans, one thing I learned about Native Americans, they do, we know there's the drawings, on this, they document a lot of wildlife. And the one that a lot of people are familiar with is describing the big hairy man. And,
right.
And a lot of people base their research off of Native American teachings. And one thing I learned about Native Americans from a pure-blooded Native American who's gathered information from elders over the years growing up is that Native Americans, this came out of his own mouth, Native Americans love their folklore. Now, of course, folklore may not, there's stories passed on from generation to generation where folklore is not quite factual. There's nothing that will support it except word of mouth, So, but I know I kind of get into a long drawn discussion here based off of that one question, but yeah, over the year, there's people out there, I believe, that have had a lot of interaction, or have seen things. There's people out there, I believe, that may be seeing them on a daily basis because maybe they're moved into an area where that location is inhabited. I've heard a story. There was a story shared to me that was received from another gentleman who passes the story along. When this guy in Ohio moved into on this property, and it wasn't long he started experiencing stuff, and then he started seeing something that kept appearing in his backyard, and the subject seemed pretty pissed because no one was supposed to be there, and then here comes someone that moved into that property and invaded his privacy. So
right.
One thing I am learning, and this kind of goes along with your question as far as people interacting, a population, Sasquatch population. I am learning in various locations. I believe there is a population, and various areas may have more than others based off of I believe it all depends. Just like some areas may hold more deer than acres
Right.
a location miles up the road, because the deer are going to be where the food is, just like any apex predator. As the season change and everything, a lot of animals move and migrate. Some descend or go up to the higher terrain or wherever the food source is going to go. They follow the food sources. And but yeah, with me believing that there's a population over a period of time, I believe more and more people are going to start seeing things, and I do believe people are going to start speaking a little bit more, because there's people out there that really want the truth heard, and regardless, eventually their stories will be told. So, but I don't know if that answers,
awesome.
No,
that totally answers my question. It shines a brand new light on it for me because, I never thought about, how it can possibly correlate to, say, the deer population or the bear population, as, they would migrate, where the food is and stuff like that.
yeah.
So, and Jax, I know you've got questions, and I'm sorry, Betty, I've been dominating. As far as the questions go.
That's all right. Excuse me. How you doing, David?
Not bad.
Good. How come no one has ever found any Sasquatch remains?
That's a very good question. And you know what? I've been in discussions with this here with numerous people, and I tell you what, one of the things I share in some of my presentations, because I hold a lot of local seminars, and that question actually, well, that there got brought up in part of several presentations, and that's a very common question. And one of the things I've learned is Cliff Brackman. For those who know Cliff Brackman from the show Finding Bigfoot, on his blog, he actually shares something very similar. Of course, he goes into a lot more scientific detail and he breaks it all down. And he's really good. Cliff Brackman is smart, For the record, before I go on and explain anymore, I do want to state for the record, for a lot of people that watch these shows, people got to understand Finding Bigfoot. It's run by producers and so forth, and et cetera, where some of it's, a lot of people think it's a joke. But believe it or not, Cliff Brackman, Bobo, those guys take it seriously apart from the show. It's just, they got to do what they're told in the show, but not all of it's staged. They do conduct real research. And yes, it's partially for entertainment purposes, but Cliff Brackman is a very wise guy. But as far as the remains, when I get asked that question, and a lot of times it's coming from non-believers or skeptics, but even believers question themselves, like, well, why aren't we finding a body? We got to find something. Well, the same question comes back as, why haven't we found the remains? Well, I shouldn't say why haven't we, but how many remains of a bear that's died of natural causes? Or what about an apex predator like a mountain lion? Have we ever found remains of a mountain lion that's died of natural causes? These are the kind of questions we need to think about, because here we're considering Bigfoot as an apex predator because he's, like, I want to believe he's dominant. He's on the top of the food chain, and so now, like us, yeah, people come across bodies, people murder scenes, so there's a remains of a body out in the woods. But now Sasquatch, again, this is me comparing, because I like to compare Bigfoot, Sasquatch to our known non-human primates. And also I like to compare Bigfoot to bears, period. And with us not finding remains of a bear, now here's one way to look at this. Bears, I believe, they know their time of death. When they become ill, they became, they like to, I believe they go off, they find a den or a hidden place where they spend the remainder of their time to die off. Cats on occasions do this. A lot of times you might have a cat, it might, if you have an outdoor cat, it's used to hanging around your home. Well, when your cat, when that cat gets ill and dies, you're not going to see it. It's going to just disappear. You're going to think it's ran away or somebody took it. Cats, I learned this because, we've had a cat as a child and learned that, when it got old and died, it didn't hang around the house. It went somewhere. It, the remaining, wanted to die off a piece. And I believe this is a natural instinct. This is natural with a lot of species where their remains become, where they die off in a hidden place where the remains are not going to really be found. Because if it's hidden, we're not going to go look in every den and cave that, that's really elusive to man. Because there's a lot of caves and structures out there that we don't even know about. Most of the caves that we know about are used for tourist sites, and then give or take, there's a few that I talk to hikers and other bicyclists that go riding on the mountains and ask them if they know of any caves. And I've learned of a few just from talking to people out in the woods, that I come across. So there's caves that are known, and there's dens that, like I said, I'm just using Virginia as an example. There's so much terrain, and I've hiked in places where I shouldn't have had no business going into. But, I'm somebody that likes to explore, and I take chances sometimes, and some of the chances I take may not be the smartest because they're not safe. And it's like, I try to put my mindset, like, what would a Sasquatch do? Where would a Sasquatch go? We don't really know what they think, but we try to think of the impossible for us. What's impossible for us may not be impossible for them, because we believe that they're strong creatures and they're highly intelligent. So, I guess with that being said, as far as remains, even when a carcass of, say, for example, a deer, when a deer remains, like especially when it dies down to the skeletalization, where it's nothing but skeleton, over a period of time, you're gonna have other rodents and everything. They're gonna pick out the bones and get the marrow and spread the bones apart and scatter, and whatever bones sit and remain there after they're done being used up, nature's gonna take over. Because a lot of times bones, they actually, they get covered by the forest blanket. Well, I call it, because you got the leaf litter,
Right.
and everything else, and some bones get covered in moss. Just like some sticks and twigs, so they're gonna blend in. You could be walking along, you could be walking over bones, you don't even know it. Now another thing. Now this is again comparing Bigfoot to our primates. One thing a lot of people don't realize about primates, where their bones are totally different from humans or any other species. Their bones do not preserve nowhere as long as humans do, especially in soils that are highly acidic. Especially like, for example, the Pacific Northwest, considered a rainforest. That soil contains a lot of high levels of acid from the rain, because they get rain all the time. So with a primate, their bones deteriorate and break down. Unlike us humans, of course, when we die, we get put in a casket, sealed. We're sealed, so our remains last longer. It takes longer for them to break down, and of course, usually the bones are going to be the only thing remaining. You take a human and bury it, for a period of time, their bones are still going to be there. You take a primate, and put them just without a casket, put them in the soil, and wait 5-10 years, you may not see those remains. Those bones may be so deteriorated where they're just chalked up into the soil. So that's one thing that when it comes to primate bones, is that their bone capacity is not like humans or any other species. They deteriorate. So that's where my theory is. Could that be a possible similar trait with Bigfoot? We don't know, but that's a possibility. I like to believe that if they are any bit similar to a primate in any way, which again, with my other comparisons earlier, I do believe that that's a good possibility. But so yeah, with nature, taking over, and them, knowing believing that I know their time of death. And another thing, it's been observed on a rare occasion, but primates have been observed burying their dead. So that could also be another possibility.
That was going to be a follow-up question that I had. Given how you suspect they have such a high intelligence, is it possible that they're burying or somehow otherwise discarding of their dead?
Yeah. Now, in most cases with primates, when one dies, a lot of times what they do, they actually drag the body along until they're, that's a lot of times in a primate, like a chimpanzee, their way of mourning, it can be dead for months before they get rid of it, and I know that's crazy, but that's actually how primates work. But so, I mean, there's a number of possibilities, of course. Nobody's ever come forward to say, I've observed Sasquatch doing this, but I like to believe that's a possibility, so that they may go off and hide and, die off, and maybe they do practice some natural ceremonial things like primates. Because another thing too, primates has been observed where it's kind of like a ceremonial thing where they'll gather in a group and just to sit and mourn the death of one of their members.
Mm-hmm.
So and so again, I guess till we observe this, we can't put that in stone. But so these possibilities, I like to believe that on a more logical sense, and so that
I think we're going to forego our bottom of the hour break, Jax, because I know you had more questions and we're running out of time. So is that cool with you if we just skip the last break of the evening?
Absolutely.
Okay, go for it, Jax. I know you've got questions.
Now, there's a number of conflicting reports out there. Some investigators out in the field say that, that they, for communicating, they do the scream, and then others are saying don't scream. What's your opinion on that?
Well, I think it really depends. Some locations vary, different areas. I believe they. I'm trying to think the best way to word that. Yeah, I think it really all depends on the subjects that may be inhabiting the area. For example, I personally have gotten more responses from doing tree knocks. I've gotten return tree knocks, and I've given off, howls. I've done a few screams. I've done whoops. I've never got responses from them. Now, my good friend Greg Corbin, a fellow researcher, I could recall one time us camping right at camp is when we heard something in the distance, and we heard it very clear. He mimicked that same sound, and 2 or 3 times he mimicked it, and every time he did, we got responses like really close to us, and yeah, this went on for like 2 or 3 times, and so I guess tone. A lot of it has a lot to do with tone, and I think it's safe to say, and I think a lot of people agree, is that they're familiar with what they sound like to what it's supposed to sound like to them. I believe that Greg happened to get it identical to how they produce it, and a lot of what we put out there, as far as communicating verbally, vocally, regardless if it's scream, howl, or whatever it is, if they're in the area and they hear this, again, I believe it's a lot to do with they know the difference. Now tree knocks, again, comparing tree knocks to vocals, tree knocks, they recognize a tree knock. It may be one of their own, and the tree knocks to me is, I'll share this real quick, is I believe a communication source where they're locating each other. They want to know where each other is located. I've done that where I've tree knocked both day and night, and the tree knocks during the daytime, I've gotten responses. I don't always get responses, but a number of my tree knocks, I've always gotten responses. And for example, I've given off a tree knock, and I've got a response from another ridge down to my left. And then when that one sounded off, another tree knock, but 5 seconds later, up on the far right, going way up the hill. So either they knew or they thought I was one of them communicating, locating. They want to know where everybody was standing. It's kind of like us having radio communication. All right, Roger, hey, I'm over here. Everybody check in. Everybody getting on the radio communicating with. All right, I'm over here at such and such. I'm at home base. Basically, I believe that's how tree knot communication works. They're locating by the sound. They know where it's coming from. But yeah, as far as vocals, I hope I didn't misunderstand your question. I hope I'm responding to how you wanted. But yeah, I believe it just depends on the sound and how they recognize it. If it's something they found, or they either find familiar or they don't recognize. And if they don't recognize it or not sure what it is, I don't believe they will respond. If they, excuse me, if that makes any sense. So,
yes. Yeah. Do you think that Sasquatch is a direct descendant of Gigantopithecus?
You know what? That's a very good question. I like that question because I've actually spoke about that before, and a lot of people believe that is highly impossible, where I don't see that being impossible at all, because I actually believe that. And in some sense, people believe that Gigantopithecus was not bipedal. Some people thought he was all, just like any other orangutan. They're usually knuckle walkers and basically on all fours. Well, the thing is, we weren't allowed to observe Gigantopithecus, but we do know he did exist. Based off of science, And Gigantopithecus was believed to be a 10 to 12 foot tall, maybe even taller primate, more or less resembling like some form of orangutan. Um, Now, and that's where I speak about. I don't believe in evolution. However, I do believe in over a period of time, there's an adaptation through different species. Now, if Gigantopithecus wasn't a bipedal subject, I believe over a period of time where it was, I'm trying to think of the best way to word this, is they adapted to best, for their living, whatever worked better for them. I believe they may have practiced bipedalism to where it was enough to where they started using that, where I believe that could be a possibility, that they're better suits their living, situation. And, but just like a lot of species way back when during the prehistoric era, Pleistocene era, we had a lot more larger subjects, a lot of creatures that were huge. And now today, in modern days, we have all these animals that may have resembled something that could have been what those creatures were back then. They all resembled what we have today. Now, people got to look at this? Could Gigantopithecus could be a branch or a distant cousin? Now we got smaller primates. Gorillas are pretty huge. Orangutans are pretty decent size. Yeah, we got the bonobo, the billy ape. The billy ape's a 3 to 400 pound ape, and which is nicknamed called the cat killer. I'll never forget that one. So yeah, we have all these different primates, and they're all still being discovered till today. But I do believe, that there's a possibility there is a connection somewhere along the line that Bigfoot could be related. So yeah, to answer your question, I do believe that's very possible. It's just, again, there's not enough to really go by, or as far as research and evidence to support that. But in my theory, I do believe that there's a good, I want to say strong possibility. So, absolutely.
Now, of course, Sasquatch or Bigfoot is known clear worldwide. Different names, whatever. In the United States alone, the two biggest sightings in the area of like the Appalachian Mountains and the Pacific Northwest. Which has more sightings?
Well, that's another good question. Most of what you hear usually comes out of the Pacific Northwest. And I tell you what, I believe we have just as much here, if not more, on the East Coast, along, like for example, like you along the Appalachian Trail, and here in general, from the East Coast to the Midwest. I believe the population is very strong, and the reports, just more and more people coming forward with reports, because like I said, I believe there's populations, and just like any other species, they do breed. And the Pacific Northwest has a lot of remote country. And the thing is, people have claimed to see them. The Pacific Northwest got their reputation from, the Patterson footage and so forth. And that's kind of made it more of a very popular location. But, because we got some famous footage that came out of there. And but I believe the East Coast is very strong with the population of Sasquatch, for a number of reasons. Because we got people underestimate the East Coast with the terrain and the forest, the food sources, the water, everything. There's a lot that you could break down and pinpoint and show. There's so much here on the East Coast that a lot of people on the Pacific Northwest, I think they're starting to recognize and get familiar. So. So with the West Coast, I honestly, my opinion, I believe that it's just overrated. That's just my opinion. It's just, I think we have a lot going on here on the East Coast, and more people are starting to speak. So yeah, the reports have actually grown heavily here on the East Coast, and I do believe there's enough records to pinpoint the East Coast is between the East Coast to the Midwest, like Ohio, and you go out to places like Illinois, locations like that, all the way down to Texas, Florida, Texas. So much land and terrain. There's a lot of remote, secluded areas, and again, it's growing, and I believe it's safe to say that the East Coast has got it pretty strong. So.
That's awesome. Well, Daniel, we've only got a couple of minutes left with you, and so we want to give you the opportunity to let our listeners know where they can find out more about you, where they can find out more about ECBRO, where they can find your books. The floor is yours, my friend.
All right, great. First of all, the book, my newest book, Learning Bigfoot, Discovering the Hidden Truth, you can find that on Amazon. And be sure to leave a review. And also, I want to give a heads up, let everybody know, in 2019, we are holding our second annual ECBRO Virginia Bigfoot Conference. And that is taking place June 29th and June 30th in Waynesboro, Virginia. You can find information about that at virginiabigfootcon.com. Also, you can find we have a Facebook event page. You can find that out, the ECBRO annual Virginia Bigfoot Con. Please definitely check that out. And you can book now. Tickets are on sale as we speak. And we got a number of speakers lined up. I have more to add to the website. So if you visit the website, I have to update it. We've picked up more speakers than what's listed on there for 2019. Our first event was a huge success, and we got people looking forward to doing this again. And I just another one I want to throw out there real quick. July 27th of 2019 in Marion, Illinois, the Southern Illinois Monster Hunters, hosted by Zach Sterick. So you can check that out. And you can find me, view my videos. I have field videos and podcast shows on my YouTube channel. You can find that at Bigfoot Zone, which is with ECBRO in parentheses right next to it. And definitely check that out. If you have not done so, subscribe. We have a main ECBRO group right on Facebook. And if you have any questions, again, visit the website, the event website. There's contact forms on there. You can buy your tickets through the website or go to our Facebook page and buy the tickets through there. If you have any questions, you want to email me for any reason. If you have a story or a report you want to share, you could go to send your email to ecbro98@gmail.com. And you want to hear more Bigfoot stories? There's a number of Bigfoot stories that take place out of Virginia and along the Blue Ridge Mountains. Also, check out Blue Ridge Bigfoot on YouTube, hosted by Mr. Mike Singleton. A lot of great reports and stories come out of there, and he's picked up over the years. And so check that out. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for tuning in. And that's pretty much all I have to say.
Well, we want to thank you so much for being a guest on the show. We really learned a lot. Like I said, I'm just an afterlife researcher. I'm a ghost hunter, and Jax is a little bit more knowledgeable than I am in this area. But I really, I live in the heart of the Rocky Mountains, and we have occasional encounters here in Colorado, but nothing like the Pacific Northwest or over there on the Appalachian Trail, as you mentioned. And so this was really exciting for me, to get to learn more about Bigfoot and some of the popular theories surrounding their behavior and their very existence. This was cool for me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You wouldn't happen to know a Robert Shaw? Hold on, what's his name? Robert? No. Oh man, I forgot his name. I can't believe that. He's the founder of the Rocky Mount Sasquatch group.
I sure don't.
I can't. Man, I'm when you know somebody and you can't, for some reason your brain skips their name.
Yeah.
Kelly Shaw. That's his name, Kelly Shaw.
No, I sure don't. You know, I've
Oh, okay.
I've got the second longest running ghost investigation team in the state,
Oh,
but
okay.
I don't know a lot of the ET people. I don't know a lot of the crypto people. Um,
Gotcha.
paranormal is an awfully big field. Uh,
Right.
if you start tossing ghost name, uh, afterlife research names out there, chances are I know everybody, but um, I sure don't know.
Well, at our event, June 29th and June 30th, one of my speakers that will be coming up for that, Michael Cook and his fiancee Gwendolyn out of Kentucky, they will be conducting a paranormal ghost investigation the Friday night, the day before. Well, they're either doing it the Friday night, the day before, or after the first day of the conference. So anybody that's interested in joining, being part of that, that should be interesting. So Michael Cook and Gwendolyn, they will be doing. You can find them on Facebook under their group name, Uncharted Paracryptid Research, I believe it's called. So
Interesting.
yeah, they'll be doing an investigation with us, and I'm looking forward to that. That should be fun. And then actually after our 2-day conference, we'll be conducting our annual one of our camping expeditions throughout the year that we hold. So anybody want to get out there, do an investigation camping, it will be free. So there'll be a lot to look forward to. So, yep.
Awesome. Well, Daniel, we want to thank you for being such an awesome guest on the show. We wish you the best of luck with your research and with your books and your conferences. Big things are on the horizon for you, buddy.
Yeah, it's a lot going on, a lot to take in. So, so hopefully everything continues to work in my favor. Uh, it's been a struggle right now with a lot of different things just
Yep.
popping up, getting in the way, but that's life. So,
Yep. Yeah.
so
Well, thank you again for being such a great guest on the show. And again, we'll be keeping tabs. You're on our radar. So good
awesome.
luck. Good luck in your endeavors, my friend.
Thank you. You guys have a great night, and thank you again. Really
You
love
too.
this.
You too.
All
Take care.
right. Bye
Thank you,
bye.
Daniel.
Thank you, Jax.
You know,
Daniel Benoit, ladies and gentlemen. Such a wealth of information. Oh my gosh, Jax, were you expecting so much information from this guy? I wasn't.
um, well, as you know, I sent you the link to his YouTube channel, so I've been watching a lot of his videos the last few days, so I
Mhm.
knew that he was knowledgeable. That's why I was really, really looking forward to him coming on tonight.
Yeah, you and I had talked before the show, and like I mentioned on the show, I've been following him on social media and things like that, and so I knew he knew his stuff. I just didn't realize what a wealth of information. Oh my gosh. He was incredible.
Yes. Yes, he was.
He was incredible. I think it's great. And I think a lot of the things that he discussed, actually make sense. My questions were answered. I don't feel like I was being BS'd, even though there was a lot that was discussed. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a lot that was discussed, but I didn't feel like I was being BS'd. I really feel like my questions were being answered in a way that I could understand them. And for somebody that knows next to nothing, about Bigfoot, that was important to me, and I appreciate that. I thought that was cool.
Yes.
So, yeah. And then, of course, next week we're going to have Ben Robison and his beard. The beard is an entity in and of himself. But we're going to have Ben and his beard as guest on the show. We're going to be talking about the SERM theory, SERM, and which stands for, if you'll give me 2 seconds, I can tell you what it stands for. Or not theory, it's hypothesis. The SERM hypothesis. And it stands for, no, that's not it. It's not selective estrogen receptor modulators. What? Let's put paranormal in there. There we go. It stands for spectral emotion to radio frequency manifestation. Man, I hope Ben is not listening right now. So, Ben, we had you on a paranormal show to talk about estrogen receptors. Come on. Ben will be like, I am on the wrong show.
Right?
His beard will be like, yeah, let's talk about it. But Ben will be like, yeah, no, I'm out. So, no, SERM, S-E-R-M, spectral emotion to radio frequency manifestation. It's huge. It's big. It's growing in popularity, and people need to know more about it. And in fact, I am sending you the link, hypothesis itself, right now. In fact, I sent it to you and Chris because I know Chris is going to want to read it.
Great. Thank you.
So, yeah. And sorry, I just got distracted, which has been happening a little bit tonight. I apologize. But yeah, I got to stop looking at that. So yeah, next week we're going to have the CERM hypothesis, Ben Robinson and his beard. And Ben and I go back to the days on the old network. Also, Ben used to have a show on Hazy, and that's how I met Ben all those years ago. When Periscope Uncensored was on a different network, Ben had a show on the network. And he has quickly become one of my most respected colleagues. He definitely knows his stuff, and so I think it's going to be a really good show next week. You definitely want to tune in. Chris, oh. Chris just sent me a message asking about the sperm hypothesis. No, SERM, S-E-R-M. Man, everybody's brain is in the gutter tonight. So tune in to Periscope Uncensored next week, next Monday, 9 p.m. Eastern, Studio B, here on lnmradionetwork.com, where we'll be talking to Ben. Also, tune in to Hidden World next Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern in Studio B, where we're going to have Corvus Nocturnum on the show again. We're going to be talking about the Church of Satan and his newly released book, Have Yourself a Merry Little Krampus. So, will you stop laughing, Jax? I'm not even looking at the messages right now, but I can tell you are because you're laughing, and I can see you laughing. How am I supposed to hold a straight face if you're not holding a straight face?
I didn't do it.
Chris must have done it then. Oh my God, he did. Wow. For those that don't listen to Hidden World on Sunday nights, my partner in crime, Mr. Chris Carr, is a perv. And he's yeah, exactly. He's been sending some naughty stuff, folks, to Jax and I. And the man has no shame.
Leave it to you, Chris.
Right. Leave it to Chris. But so, great quality entertainment and programming lined up here on lnmradionetwork.com. I just heard it ping. I'm not even going to look at it, Jax. No, don't look because you make me laugh. No.
Okay. All right. It's good. It's all good.
It's good? It's good? Yeah, now I want to look at it. Now I want to look. Don't look, Ethel.
It's all good. Yeah.
Oh my
So,
god. I can't talk, Jax. Take over.
yeah.
So, okay. Yeah, you know what? We're calling it a night.
Crackers.
We're we're we're
Yeah.
calling it a night. We we can't go on the last 2 minutes. So thank you everyone for tuning in tonight. Be sure to tune in next week, and of course tune in to Hidden World next Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern in Studio B. So for Daryl, Katie, Chris, Jax, the rest of the L&M family, and myself, have a fantastic night, everyone. May all of your ghosts be friendly.
Stay spooky, everybody.
Find out what that